Qwilfish is, in my personal opinion, the most important and influential Pokemon in the entire GCUU metagame. I wouldn't say it's the absolute best Pokemon in the tier or anything, as I still think Scyther and Granbull are superior overall, but I think its effect and importance in the tier outshine any other Pokemon. There is a reason it is consistently the most top used Pokemon in tournaments, or at very worst, it's number 2. While its stats and move pool are fairly mediocre, it holds this position due to learning Spikes, which is the best move in the entire generation. Period. Qwilfish now may not be the only legal Spikes user, as Pineco and Delibird both exist, but it is far better than both of them due to its better typing, speed, and use beyond Spikes. Qwilfish has always been excellent in GSCUU, but it wasn't always the near automatic inclusion that it is today. For a long time, people didn't think it was that worth to use a team slot on the otherwise mediocre Qwilfish, just for Spikes. This mindset has largely disappeared though, and Qwilfish these days is consistently the most used Pokemon in GC underused team tournaments. At the very worst, it is number 2, just behind something like Haunter or Granbull. Pokemon that let in and have a poor matchup against Qwilfish, such as Arcanine, Shuckle, and Politoed, have their viability seriously hindered, as letting in a Spiker is pretty bad already, and people are always looking for opportunities to switch Qwilfish in. To analyse Qwilfish further, we first need to analyse Spikes. Due to how GC DVs work, Pokemon in GC can max out all their stats at once, which leads to Pokemon being much bulkier on average. Rest Talk is far more powerful in GC, since Rest heals Rest Pokemon when pulled by Sleep Talk. This gives virtually every Pokemon in GC a reliable way of healing themselves. This is why Spikes are so useful in every single GC tier, well except Zeo because Spikes don't exist there, as they let powerful offensive Pokemon break through these walls easier. Spikes provide crucial chip damage that can help the offensive Pokemon break through bulkier Pokemon easier. Leftovers are used on over 95% of Pokemon in GCUU, and without Spikes up, then defensive Pokemon can often just switch around, regaining health with leftovers. Spikes help immensely against this, as they mean leftovers on a switch only remove 6.5% instead of 12.5%. GC games have just a lot of switching, so Spikes are extremely important for keeping up pressure. Spikes commonly do over 70% of damage in games alone, and against defensive teams, they can do over 100% in damage alone, and unlike OU and Ubers, GCUU is lacking in good rapid spin users. This means Spikes is often permanently staying up in games. The only good rapid spin user is Blastoise, who while grey, can be passive and net in certain Pokemon. It also loses to Cursed Qwilfish one-on-one. Because of all this, Qwilfish is not far from being mandatory in GC underused. Without its Spikes pressure, Pokemon like Haunter, Mr. Mime, Scyther, Electabuzz, Lantern, Nidoqueen, and Gyarados are far less effective. The only team styles that commonly drop Qwilfish are hard stall teams, semi-stall stuff with Quagsire and Healbell Granbull, and HO teams with Electrode. Electrode HOs don't really need Spikes pressure, as they already immensely pressure teams with the combination of Granbull, Scyther, and Pinsir, so they prefer to run something else. And that brings us to Qwilfish itself, whose typing and stats are just enough to make it a good spiking Pokemon, as well as an alright Pokemon outside of Spikes. Qwilfish has a solid speed stat of 85, which outspeeds common Pokemon like Nidoqueen, Gyarados, Hypno, Kabutops, and Blastoise. Having a high speed stat is crucial for Qwilfish to function, as its bulk isn't that good, and it is weak to common attacking types. Offensively, Qwilfish is also better than one might think. It has a good attack stat, and its main stab move, Sludge Bomb, has an irritating poison chance. Sludge Bomb also scares the daylight out of defensive grass types, Blossom and Jumpluff. Hydro Pump complements Sludge Bomb well, as it hits ground, rock, and poison types that resist Sludge Bomb. Qwilfish can actually be pretty annoying to switch into, as Sludge Bomb Poison ruins Pokemon that lack rest, and forces Pokemon with rest to use Sleep Talk. Qwilfish can be a decent late game cleaner, particularly when it uses Curse. Defensively, Qwilfish's typing is a double-edged sword. It is granted resistances to Water and Bug, as well as a Poison resistance, but it is weak to all of Psychic, Electric, and Ground, the 3 most common attacking types in the entire metagame. When finding opportunities to switch Qwilfish in and set up Spikes, you have a few options. You can switch it in on a Pokemon that is about to use Rest, such as Hypno or Granbull, a Pokemon that lets it set up freely, like Shuckle on Stall teams. You can double switch it in against a Pokemon that it outspeeds, like Gyarados or Piloswine, or you can leave it in against a powerful super effective attack, barely tank that attack, and then set up Spikes with an extremely weakened Qwilfish. You are also able to switch Qwilfish into opposing Qwilfish almost entirely safely, which is where it most often sets up against offensive teams. Since Qwilfish is a fairly mediocre Pokemon, outside of setting up spikes, it is usually just used as a sacrifice against offensive teams after it has set up those moves. These teams rarely run Rapid Spin, so Qwilfish's spikes are often staying up forever. Against more defensive teams though, it is better to keep Qwilfish healthy, as these teams very commonly run Blastoise. If you sacrifice Qwilfish, and then Blastoise comes in and permanently ruins spikes, then you are in a really bad spot. This is why I think it's best to not sacrifice a huge amount of Qwilfish's health until you know what opposing team style is. There is another important question with Qwilfish that regards its moveset, which is whether you pick Curse or Haze as its last move slot. In the older eras of GC underused, Haze is pretty much always used over Curse, as Blastoise was far less popular than it is now, and Haze had numerous uses. As Blastoise has gotten more popular, though, Curse has greatly risen in usage, and is arguably more popular and more useful than Haze these days. With Qwilfish's speed, it can use Haze to outspeed something like Curse Granbull and Kabutops, and remove their attacking boosts. This could be game changing, though Qwilfish often had to take a huge attacking move as it used Haze. Curse, on the other hand, lets Qwilfish win the 1v1 matchup against Blastoise, which can otherwise outlast and wear down Haze Qwilfish to the point of KOing it. I think choosing between Haze and Curse is choosing between better against offensive teams with Haze and defensive teams with Curse. Personally, they both have their uses, and I can't really say which one is overall better. Some other fourth movesets have been explored in the past, but they aren't really worth using. These include shit like Swagger, Hidden Power Ground, and Rests. I guess you could try it, but it's not really good. Some people have also used Surf over Hydro Pump, but I wouldn't recommend this, since Surf can't 2-hit KO Nidoqueen. Overall, what more can I say? Qwilfish is the most important mon in GC underused, and without it, the tier would most likely be an unplayable stall fest. So thanks Qwilfish. Thanks a lot, bro.